If you aren't a resident of Japan, then chances are you've probably never heard of the Simple series before. If you have, then good for you, but I'm going to go ahead and give a little bit of background anyway for those who are uninformed. In 1998, Bandai Namco subsidiary D3 released Simple 1500 Series Volume 1, Mahjong, and that simple budget game release would serve to be the pioneer for one of the largest piles of shovelware in existence. Between October 1998 and now, there have been 459 Simple series games crapped out onto the market. Despite the fact that I labeled this series as shovelware, there have actually been a few standout titles in all of it. Oni-chan has a cult following in a movie. Deadhead Fred's a game that I've been meaning to go back to because it really isn't as bad as I made it out to be. Earth Defense Force is the sequel to a Simple series title called Global Defense Force. With that in mind, I want to take a crack at weeding through some of the garbage to see if I can find some of the gold. So, in no particular order, this is 5 Simple series games. All of the games I've picked today come from the Simple 2000 series for PlayStation 2. I grew up with a PS2, so hopefully the nostalgia factor will help to improve some of the experiences. First on our list is a game that I mentioned before in my Deadhead Fred video. Volume 113, the Tairyou Jigoku, or The Mass of Hell, was released on February 22nd, 2007, and everything I saw before playing it pointed to it being a cheap survival horror experience. On booting the game, I was met by a lot of Japanese text that I am too stupid to read. Once I got beyond the menu screen, I was met with this white rabbit loading screen icon that honestly already has me worried. There's an English translation for this game, but I didn't use that here. So here's the story as I was able to interpret it. One night, there was a moon, and then a schoolgirl followed a white rabbit through a wormhole, and then there were a lot of bugs. This game is janky as fuck, but it's a winner in my book. The animations are funny to look at, and this game manages to fit an impressive amount of animated models on screen at once. There are also a lot of bugs and frogs and shit at all times, and I didn't see any performance issues. It's not Dynasty Warriors, but still, good job, dev team. I want to talk more at length about this one after I play through that English translation, so we'll leave this one with some meme material. Next up is Volume 11, the Off-Road Buggy. This one is a racing game with some decent character art, the music fit for an edgelord, and functional driving controls. Almost functional. Really, that's the best way I can describe it. It's a racing game and it sort of works. There are some things that probably should have collision and don't, and this game breaks a cardinal sin among all racing games. Steering helps you go faster. This is the exact opposite of everything I've ever been taught by any racing game. Nay, any video game ever. Doing this sort of wiggle motion will help you more quickly to build up to top speed, and drifting launches your speed upward like hitting a nitrous button. And it just really doesn't feel right. That aside, this game looks pretty decent and functions. I can't complain about the visuals because it works together well. All of the vehicles look cleanly designed, and you can tell that at least some care went into this one. Moving on, Volume 118, the Ochimusha Duemu Samurai Tuju. I don't know who voiced this introduction sequence, but this man sounds very serious, and we should probably listen to what he says. You know, even though it's all Japanese and I have no clue what he says. This game is pleasantly surprising. It's not really a hack and slash game, more like a 2D beat 'em up in a 3D arena. You mash a button and do a special move once in a while, and the ninja girl can dodge and flip and jump and stuff. Player character models look fairly well made for the console in the time period, but the enemy models are way less detailed and copy the 2D beat-em-up tradition of coloring them differently to indicate that they are various enemies. I didn't play very much, just one level for each of the 2 characters, but I don't hate it. It feels like the kind of game I would have used to waste time as a kid. Next up is Volume 56, the survival game. The most challenging part of this entire experience for me was navigating the menus. There are a lot of buttons that I can't read, and you have to assemble a team, and then you have to buy equipment and weapons, and all of this build-up is very hard for my Japanese illiterate mind to comprehend, especially when the prize for me at the end of the rabbit hole was objectively the worst first-person shooter I've ever played. It's a 2v2 game of shoot BB guns, and it sucks. The guns don't function well. The spray on these things is insane considering there's no combustion happening, and it just feels really bad. At least I'll walk away from this one knowing I didn't play it for longer than I needed to capture the footage. Honestly, I feel like I've saved the best one for last. Volume 16, the Sniper 2. When you start this game, you get a flashback to what I assume assume is the Sniper 1, and it shows this guy, who is a sniper, doing sniper things for people, and then some mob guys have him do some sniper stuff, but then he doesn't like the mob guys. Cut forward to a pre-rendered FMV that makes Silent Hill 1 look like a James Cameron film. It reminds me a lot of Reboot from 1994, but somehow with worse animation. This man, who we'll just call the Sniper, is driving with this girl down an empty desert highway when they stumble across a guy having some pretty serious car trouble. The Sniper ignores him at first, and then after some dialogue I couldn't understand, he flips a bitch and goes back to pick up the dude in need. We'll call this guy Dude. Dude exchanges some dialogue with girl and the Sniper before they pull off into a parking lot, I think, and then some mob guys show up, and it turns out that Dude knows these guys, but then they don't like each other, and then some other stuff happens that I don't care about because we finally get to snipe some shit, or try to. This game controls terribly. To aim down the scope for the rifle, you press square. To zoom the scope, you hit cross, and to aim the scope, you use the D-pad. You use the D-pad. Who thought that was a good idea? Worse yet, when you miss a single shot, it's game over in the level. Thankfully, you can restart right where you were, but it doesn't matter. This game is really just not good. Pinnacle of bad, probably. The first 3 levels are really all just the exact same backdrop where you shoot 3 guys. One who's standing perfectly still, but apparently has bulletproof ribs. One who slowly follows another guy, and a third guy who actually made a good effort and was good at ducking behind cover before I could accurately maneuver the dog water crosshair. D-pad skill issue, honestly. After those levels, a big cityscape level, and I pretty much noped out at that point. And that was 5 simple 2000 series games. This was a really bizarre experience. Normally when we think of shovelware, we think of the heavily saturated party game and licensed crapware that got spit out onto the Wii, or some of the uber ridiculous and effortless shit that made it onto Steam at one point or another. Here, I know that these were all budget games with tiny production value, but it felt like an abnormally large amount of effort went into making them. I didn't feel like I was playing shovelware. Instead, it kind of felt like I was playing random indie games. All of them had some unique charm or another that made it feel really memorable, and this whole thing is much more worth it because of that. Thank you, and have a nice day.